The Allen Lund Company continues to support the owner-operators of OOIDA. Thank you for what you do, and stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
When Aurora Innovations announced it would deploy driverless trucks on Texas roads, plenty of questions followed, and the answers simply raised more questions. Mark Schremer and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine will join Scott Thompson with what we know. Mark and Tyson will then return with more of the big news of the week, including developments in regard to independent contractor rules, speed limiter opposition, and more. Summer is coming soon, and that means heat. Some of your truck's components will need special attention to get through. So what do you need to do? I'll find out from Brian Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia. And finally, when we say utility, we typically think of water, natural gas, or electricity. But Marty Ellis recently heard that trucking fits the definition of essential utility. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. And now, here's Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. As we told you earlier this week, Aurora Innovations has officially launched truly autonomous trucks on Texas roadways over the past week or so, which brought up a whole host of questions, namely how a truck without a human inside was going to comply with the federal regulations that the rest of you and us have to comply with. Here with some of the answers, I suppose, Mark Schremer and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us be here.
So we know driverless trucks are out there now. Mark, you've been all over the story from pretty much the beginning here. One question you had was how Aurora was going to comply with one regulation in particular.
Yeah, and one of the things with this is that, you mentioned not having a human on board. That's not actually the case completely on all of these. So,
true, right.
So, so they're going back to December of 2024, the Aurora had asked FMCSA for an exemption for a regulation that requires the driver of the truck, if it is stopped at the shoulder of a highway, to get outside and place these triangles warning device around the truck in a certain manner. This is something that they have to do as soon as possible and definitely within 10 minutes to follow the regulations. They were denied their request to use warning beacons mounted on the cab of the truck instead. So it was that has led to a lawsuit, and there's a lot there that we don't have time to get into. But what we do have is, through that time, they still said, we're going to deploy this by the end of April. And, I kept on asking, well, okay, how are you going to do this? They're saying we're going to still comply with all existing regulations. And it was like, well, how are you going to do that if you're going to be autonomous and driverless? And so April 27th, they deploy this. They never answered the question of how they were going to do it. And even when they made the announcement that we've done it, it was still taking days and, more than a week and a half to get any answers. I reached out to FMCSA saying, how are they complying with this regulation? They basically deferred back to Aurora and said it's up to the companies to follow regulations, which to me felt like a bizarre kind of answer. Yeah. But then basically their answer is, I'll leave it up to others to decide whether this actually complies with the regulations. My opinion is it does not. But they are saying that some of the vehicles that they'll have on the roads will have somebody on board in the back seat. The initial run showed the CEO, Chris Urmson, was in the back seat of it, but other of the vehicles that are out of driverless will not. But they said often one of the other trucks will be within 10 minutes of the other one. So apparently if something goes wrong and have to go to the shoulder, that the truck behind that has the human on board would then have to try to get there within 10 minutes to place the cones to follow the regulations. Yet there's no answers. What happens if both of the trucks are on the shoulder at the same time or don't meet within the 10 minutes? There's a lot going on there. And at the very least, in my opinion, they should have had to go through again and ask for this exemption request to do it a different way. And then FMCSA needed to determine whether or not this method of doing it would meet that equivalent level of safety, which is what those exemption requests ask for all the time. That did not happen here. But yeah, there's so much more I could go on forever. I know we only have a limited amount of time here.
Well, and as you said too, FMCSA essentially said, hands off. This is not our deal. Right?
Which is concerning.
Right. Yeah, which raises more questions as well. Tyson, Aurora did have I can't remember what they called it. It's a conference call essentially, right?
Yeah.
To talk about this whole process and how it's going and everything. Did we learn anything from that?
We learned a couple of things. So the first thing we learned was how many trucks were deployed. So they deployed on April 27th. So since then, they have traveled 4,000 driverless miles. Between Dallas and Houston, 2 driverless trucks daily is what is out there. So I was under the impression like several of these trucks are just going to be deployed.
Especially if they're supposed to be within 10 minutes of each other.
Driverless trucks, completely driverless trucks. That doesn't seem to be the case based on what we know from Mark, the email that you got. There's 2 driverless trucks, one truly driverless, but the other one's got someone in it. So it's completely different than I think what a lot of people had in mind when this was going to be deployed, which I think for the better because we don't want a bunch of completely driverless trucks.
Well,
so
give it time.
It's going to happen. So about that,
Yeah.
so they do plan on expanding to tens of trucks by the end of the year.
Right.
But they also going to. So right now they're only driving during the day. They're not allowed to drive per the software parameters. Can't drive during the night or if it's raining or heavy wind. They cannot drive. They plan to change that by the end of this year as well, sometime in the second half. But also, it's between Dallas and Fort Worth, between Fort Worth and Houston.
Right.
They plan to expand that to Fort Worth to El Paso and then El Paso to Phoenix, again, second half of this year. But they plan to expand through the entire Sun Belt throughout all of next year. So that's basically from Nevada all the way to southern Florida. So most of the lower third of the United States by 2026, and then most of the United States by 2028.
It's a big scale up.
Big scale up. And so that's what they have planned. I know most states allow autonomous truck deployments. I think so most of the Northeast does not. California so far does not, but they plan on changing that. But yeah, they're really trying to scale this, but so far it's just 2 trucks, one of which has a driver. So it kind of takes away their whole their whole case, which is this is a viable option. So far it is not because you have that human driver.
Yeah.
They can only drive during the day.
Yeah, and the business model is supposed to be, well, this is running 24 hours. We're just going back and forth. If it's only during the day, if, human drivers can drive at night. Mm-hmm. Human drivers can drive in light rain. Mm-hmm. So far, these things aren't happening. Yeah. And I also have a lot of questions about that person sitting in the back seat of this thing going down 70 miles an hour. I don't want that job.
Well, I don't think you're going to get it. So there's the good news there, Mark. Again, we're going to see how this plays out over the coming months and years, but we have so many questions right now that don't have answers, at present time. Eventually we will, I assume, but again, begs a lot of questions. We'll continue to lean on you guys for answers here. Thank you for now. It's been a busy week. We've got more to talk about, though, so you're both going to stick around, and we'll pick this back up after the break. For now, though, Mark, we'll toss it back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Truckers are urged to call their members of Congress to support the Got Truckers Act, H.R. 1962 in the House and S. 893 in the Senate, which will require overtime pay for truckers. Call 202-224-3121 or use the website fightingfortruckers.com. Next, Scott Thompson covers the latest on independent contractors and speed limiters with Mark Schremer and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Welcome back to Landline Now. It's not deja vu all over again, but we do have Mark Schirmer and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine rejoining us because it has been a busy week, and we've got a lot more to talk about. Gentlemen, thanks for sticking around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thanks for the Yogi Berra reference. I like that.
Anytime I can squeeze Yogi Berra into a newscast or anything, I'll definitely do it. Let's dive right into a topic that has, I think, big implications for a big number of independent contractors and truck drivers out there. Tyson, we had the Department of Labor issuing new guidance on how to determine whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. And in short, the department is essentially walking away from this rule. Is that safe to say?
For the most part, yeah. And this is something we kind of predicted was going to happen. This is a Biden-era independent contractor rule that replaced the Trump V1, era.
First term, yeah.
His first term independent contractor rule. So it was kind of, the writing was on the wall that this was going to happen. So what happened was, so kind of step back a little bit. So before 2021, there was no independent contractor regulation. It was really left up to agency guidance and court precedent to determine who was and wasn't an independent contractor. 2021, Trump comes up with a rule that basically had 5 factors to look at. The first 2, which are the nature and degree of control and the opportunity for profit or loss, were the core factors. So if you were determined to be leaning independent contractor on those 2, then you were an independent contractor. It was pretty cut and dry. It made it easier to be determined to be an independent contractor. 2024 rolls around, Biden doesn't like that, and so what they did is that they have 6 factors, all of which you look at the totality of it. None had any more determinative factor than the other. It kind of made it a little bit more difficult to become an independent contractor. And so now it comes to, and so a lot of lawsuits were filed against the Biden-era 2024 rule. That brings us to today, and then, Trump in his second term, the Department of Labor basically told the courts to hold these cases, put them in abeyance for now, because we are going to do something different that might make these cases moot. And so what they did is the Department of Labor basically put out guidance, enforcement guidance, saying when it comes to investigations to look into whether or not someone is an independent contractor, we are not going to look at the official 2024 rule. So instead, what they are doing is they're going to revert back to 2008 guidance, which is very similar to the 2024 rule. It's 7 factors instead of 6, and it does look at the totality of it rather than, 2 core factors. So it is more similar to the Biden era rule than it is Trump's first term rule. Okay. So the question is, what does this change for like owner operator truck drivers, if anything? And the quick answer is it changes nothing. So the rules that we have been living by since 2024 are pretty much going to stay intact until a new rule is going to be introduced, which we don't know what the Department of Labor is going to do. We do know that they will do something officially, something that may be just rescinding the 2024 rule. It could be replacing it with the 2021 rule that they had in the first. We don't know what it's going to look like, but in the interim, the thing that truck drivers need to pretty much know is that not a whole lot's going to change with this new guidance. But the thing is, we will be looking, forward to seeing what they will end up doing, more long term. We just don't know what that's going to look like yet.
It would seem, just from the way you explain it there, that this would be welcome news from the independent contractors out there, or am I maybe being a little too optimistic?
Because it does signal that they want to revert to. So the problem with the 2024 rules, a lot of people thought it made it easier for companies or for owner-operator truck drivers to be considered employees, kind of detrimental to the independent contractor model. That was never realized, so that never really happened, whereas the 2021 rule really kept it intact more securely, right? The problem with the 2021 rule was that there was a provision that allowed carriers to basically force independent contractors to include all sorts of requirements in the name of safety and not have be considered an employee. So that includes speed limiters, forward-facing cameras. They can force independent contractors to have all those things and not considered a higher degree of control to be employees. Obviously, OOIDA and other independent contractors didn't like that. So if you were to go back to that 2021 rule, it's just like keep all the things except for that, because that was kind of a deal killer on that one. So again, don't know what it's going to look like moving forward. The only thing that truck drivers need to know is that the rules we've been living by pretty much mostly the same.
Check out this segue. Speed limiters. You mentioned it.
I did.
Let's pivot to that now. Mark, you and I spoke recently, a few weeks ago, I think, when Congressman Josh Burkeen of Oklahoma reintroduced his speed limiter bill in the House. Essentially, it would bar FMCSA from imposing one. Now we've got a Senate version. And this, I think, brings this to the fore again, brings it into the spotlight again, that this is still an issue that's lingering out there.
Yeah, and I think it's another transition from what we just talked about on the independent contractor. We talked about how we had a Trump rule, and then we went back to a Biden rule. Our politics are so divisive right now. That's what we're kind of having with a variety of issues, all of this ping-ponging back and forth. And why I think the Drive Act that has been introduced by Steve Daines in the Senate and Josh Burkeen, as you mentioned, in the House is so important, is it would basically end that back and forth, because what it would do is it would be a congressional mandate that would say FMCSA is not allowed to propose or, go forward with any rules mandating speed limiting devices on commercial motor vehicles. They look at it as a state's rights issue. I look at it as a safety issue that even though, at first glance, slowing down a truck, a lot of people know nothing about trucking would think that would generally make things safer. But when you start looking into it and you realize, so that means that if safety advocates got their way, trucks would be slowed down to 60 miles an hour on the same road where cars are going 80 miles an hour. That doesn't seem safe. So what this would do would end that, because what we had, look back at this issue in particular, 2016, Democratic President Barack Obama issues, this proposal. President Trump on his first term comes in 2017, puts it on the back burner. President Biden, Democratic, brings it back to life. And now we expect President Trump to withdraw it or put it on the back burner again. OOIDA has called for that again this past week, asking him to formally withdraw this rule. We do expect that to happen. But what we don't want to happen is 4 years from now, we have a new president, and so we have a Democrat again next time, and now truckers have to deal and have to fight this issue again. We need some certainty with so many of these things. It would be nice if we could come to compromise and negotiations on some of these things, as opposed to constant back and forth every time.
Yeah, and I think that's important to underline and put in bold here, because some people may hear this and think, all right, well, we don't have to worry about this. President Trump is not going to enforce or put a speed limiter mandate into effect. But again, as you point out, these bills in the Senate and House would prevent future presidents from pursuing this, future administrations from getting FMCSA to do this. So that is why it's important.
Yeah, and it really is. Like I said, it's I imagine it's got to be frustrating for truck drivers out there every time. Didn't we end this a decade ago?
Yeah, it's like whiplash.
Yeah, and so that would be nice to have some certainty, going forward on that. And hopefully we've seen enough, and there's been enough evidence out there that this is not the best, route to better highway safety.
Fightingfortruckers.com if you want to reach out to your lawmaker and explain to them why these bills are important. You can do that there. I don't have a good segue for this one. We're just going to flip to the next topic here, Tyson. We've got, I guess we should take a moment of silence maybe for California's Advanced Clean Fleets rule.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, the segue
More
is
ping pong.
Yeah, well, speaking of certainty, this is actually going to provide us with the certainty that we do need. So, Advanced Clean Fleets, that's the California, truck emission rule that would have required certain fleets, basically fleets of 50 or more, or fleets that have an annual revenue of $50 million or more. So larger fleets would have required them to transition to completely, zero direct emission trucks by, I think it was like 2030 or 2042. So you had to phase out your diesel trucks, go all zero emission by 2042. Yep. And so the thing is that required an EPA waiver. The Biden administration basically kicked that can so far down the road to where they just didn't do it. They didn't not give it to them. It wasn't an explicit denial.
Sure.
They just never acted on it.
Yeah, right.
And so that effectively killed advanced clean fleets because the Trump administration, that their EPA is not going to give them that waiver. So it effectively killed advanced clean fleets, very well celebrated across the trucking industry. But the issue is that there were still pending lawsuits against advanced clean fleets. And so the question is wouldn't these lawsuits be rendered moot because they didn't get the EPA waiver? Why move on with this? It's over. It's done. Except for it really technically isn't, because kind of like you mentioned with the speed limiters, with one administration, you just wait for the next one to come in. So what would stop California from keeping advanced clean fleets? Technically, advanced clean fleets is still in the books in California, right? So they could just wait 4 more years, hope a Democrat comes into the White House in 2028, and then try again with that EPA waiver. So anyway, you have these pending lawsuits. Well, in these lawsuits, California agreed in a settlement to get the process going to repeal advanced clean fleets from state law in California. So it will completely get rid of it, which would effectively pretty much make it impossible for them to come around again in 4 years or whenever and try to make this happen. And so it's kind of like this another nail in the coffin of advanced clean fleets. The final nail in the coffin will come pretty much within the next year after the rulemaking process in California is completely ended and it is officially repealed, stricken from the record in state law. So we're just kind of waiting for that. Right now, it's all just kind of procedural, but we know what's going to happen, which is the official end of advanced clean fleets.
Does this surprise you at all? Because to me, I can't remember how many times we talked about advanced clean fleets over recent years, but there was a sense in California at least that they were going to keep pushing this thing and get it across the finish line. It's it's somewhat surprising to me. Maybe I'm being too naive, but that they just completely walked away from it.
It's what the stunning part was the fact that the Biden administration did not give them that waiver. They gave them the waiver for advanced clean trucks and then the omnibus rule, advanced clean cars too. They gave them everything else except for advanced clean fleets. And so I think one common theory here is that even the Biden administration looked at the advanced clean fleets rules like, that's too much.
It's not feasible.
It's not feasible. Yeah. But the problem is that so we have advanced clean trucks. So that is a mandate on the manufacturers to sell an increasing amount of the trucks have to be electric trucks, right? These two rules were supposed to work in tandem, right? So the idea here is by forcing certain fleets to phase out diesel trucks, they are forced to buy electric trucks, which would help the manufacturers meet their targets under advanced clean trucks.
Creating demand.
Right, creating that demand. Yeah. We don't have that anymore, so it kind of puts everything else into question. How that's going to work, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But
again, it's such a quick turnaround.
It really was.
I don't know. It's surprising to me, but again, it makes sense the way you lay it out there. But again, are we going to see more of this down the line? Maybe, probably, we'll see. But.
Well, and by the way, we still have advanced clean trucks. It's still in the chopping block in Congress. So that's the thing to really look at to see whether or not they can make that happen and make this whole thing mute. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Again, a lot of because of the changes in administrations that you kind of point out, Mark, we keep going back and forth here, and it gets confusing. But again, thanks to both of you for clearing as much of it up as you can. We appreciate it as always. And if you want a good read, you can check out Tyson and Mark's work each and every day on our website, landline.media. Gentlemen, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
We're staring down a break, but fear not, we've got more Landline Now coming up right around the corner.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy when you're truck on a cat scale. Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
Landline Now. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mark Reddick. It's time for another installment of Mafia Secrets, Advice from the Boss Man, with Brian Martin of 4 State Trucks, home of the Chrome Shop Mafia. And once again, I'm on the horn with Brian Martin, the Boss Man at Joplin, Missouri's Chrome Shop Mafia. Brian, how are you doing?
You know, we're plugging along down here, making it happen just one day at a time. Kind of like the entire rest of the country, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. Though it sounded earlier like your weather's looking pretty good down there.
Yeah, we're having a couple of nice spring summery days here back to back. You know, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. You know, where's the rain? But no, we're doing mighty fine down here in the Joplin area.
Well, of course, we are in springtime, which means summer is next, and that's why we're going to talk about 5 things you need to do for summer prep. And I guess, instead of doing a countdown, let's start at the top of the list and get that most important one in. What's your number one, Brian?
Well, for summer, let's think about you. Before we think about the truck, let's think about you. As these temperatures get up 80, 90, 95 degrees and above, just about every late model truck, and when I say late model, 2005 and up, has a cabin filter, where it literally, just like in your house, your HVAC return air filter there in the ceiling or the floor or the wall that filters all the air before it runs through the dashboard, across the heater core, across the evaporator, takes all the dirt and dog hair and dust and debris out of it for the most part. Every truck's got one, and it is probably one of the most neglected items on the truck. So whether you're driving a Peterbilt, a Freightliner, International, hit the dealership up and just tell them your year, make, and model, and have them give you a new cabin fresh air filter, and go ahead and change that out. And chances are, after you do that, just like in your home, you're going to put your hand down there in front of the air conditioner vent, and it's going to be blowing a little harder. It's going to be blowing a little cooler. So there's a nice cheap trick that needs to be done every year anyway. You'd be surprised how many people don't realize that there are filters like this on semi-trucks, and we've took some out here in the shop that are just unbelievably plugged, especially if they've got a pet or pets in the truck. Is probably number one cause to prematurely plug it up. And then if you're just off-road, if you're pulling a hopper bottom, if you're in a quarry, if you're in a dusty, dirty off-road environment, of course, you're susceptible to a lot more dirt and debris in the ambient air coming into your cab there to keep you hot and keep you cool than somebody that's strictly on highway. So cabin air filter, it's cheap. It's easy to install, and you're going to feel the difference, so to speak, immediately after you change it.
That is a good idea. And, I need to do that on my car, too. So there you
go. For sure.
go.
Yeah, they've got the same thing.
Now, let's go to number 2 here. And after something simple like cabin air filter, have you got another simple one for us?
Yeah, we've talked about this one way back in the past, but same way. I mean, you get temperatures in the 90s. That old black asphalt is, 100 plus, and then that's heating up all that air that's coming across your charge air cooler, your engine radiator, your AC condenser. Basically, everything in front of your engine fan blade, all that air has to be forced across that. Well, when you run 100, 120, 130,000 miles a year, and, you've got bugs, you've got grass, you've got hay, dirt, dust, debris, raise the hood. If you have basic mechanical aptitude, go ahead and pull the charge air cooler off. Maybe go ahead and lay the AC condenser back. Don't unhook your Freon hoses, but just lay your AC condenser back where you can really get in there. Now, you've got to use some sense. You can't hold the pressure washer or the car wash wand, 2 inches off your components. But, stay back 3, 4, 5 inches away from your charge air cooler. Try to wash it out from the backside and push everything out the front if possible. If not, you can certainly do it, from the front and going in towards your engine. But if you can blow all that dirt, bugs, and debris from the backside outward, a lot of times you can get the wand or an air hose. If you've got a shop compressor and an air hose, do that from the backside of the radiator, blow all that dirt out the front. Same way with the AC condenser, same way with the charge air cooler. If you don't have air pressure, if you don't have a shop hose and an air blower, you can certainly use a pressure washer or the car wash. Just be careful, because that wand, a lot of those, the water pressures on those are, 600, 800, 1,000 PSI, and they can puncture a deteriorated or an AC condenser or a radiator core that's got some age on it. So just proceed with caution. But if you can blow all that blockage, if you will, out of all your cooling components, that volume of air, and I guess you could really say the CFM, the cubic feet per minute, blowing through all those components, because, a lot of those they're stacked 3 deep. If you've got the AC condenser, then the charge air cooler, then the engine radiator, you've got to push that through all 3 of those components. And if they get plugged full of bugs and stuff, there is certainly an engine overheat situation. There's a deteriorated performance if you're not getting enough air through your charge air cooler, lowering the intake temperature of the air going in the engine. So it's going to pay a lot of dividends. But the one I like to see is when that engine coolant temperature gauge comes down about 10 or 15 degrees in the summer, just because you've washed all those components out right there in front of your engine fan blade.
Yeah, it's a basic maintenance item, but absolutely something I would think would make a big difference. Let's go to your number 3 item. What do you got there?
Hey, here's one that this happened to me just a few weeks ago. So the wife and I get in the RV in the motorhome, and we're headed down to South Texas to a music festival. And this particular motorhome was equipped with tire pressure monitors. So, I can look on the dash, and for these, these RV tires, they want them at 120 PSI, which to me is a little high, but whatever. Anyway, so I get them all aired, made sure they're all green. The indicator's green, and they're 120 PSI. By the time I got down south of Dallas, the indicators had turned orange, and they were 140, 141, sometimes 142 PSI. So you always kind of think of tire pressure, well, underinflate is my only summer liability. And that is certainly right. An underinflated tire is going to run a lot hotter than one properly inflated. But I was surprised, if you've got one overinflated, I guess I was unaware of how much the tire pressure increases as the pavement temperature, the ambient temperature comes up. And it's not even, we're not into August yet, where the air temperature's 97, 100, 103 degrees. We were probably 85, 88, and that pushed that from 120 PSI up over 140 PSI. So I guess I never realized your tire pressure, just from normal operation, it's going to increase 20 PSI and greater as you get into these, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, South Florida temperatures, even this time of year, let alone we get into July and August. So underinflated tires, definitely something to take care of and address, but also overinflated can also be as detrimental as underinflated when you consider the expansion of the tire, the air inside the tire, and how that's going to increase the tire pressure. I didn't realize it was that significant.
That is a lot. That is an awful lot. But
it kind of blew my mind, and I thought I was kind of a mechanically inclined guy. And as I'm driving, I'm seeing it going 132, 136, 139, 140. And there was actually one left inside tire. I actually pulled over, took my gauge, and I just let, about 5 PSI out of it, because I guess if you don't know it's overinflated, maybe a fellow would never worry about it. But when you see it there on the tire pressure indicator, it's all I could think about. So I had to pull over, hit the shoulder, and let some air out
Oh, wow.
to get back into spec,
Wow, that is.
Yeah.
you didn't see how big my eyes got right then, but they got big when you're talking
Right,
140.
right. Yeah, the stuff a fella don't think of. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go to the number 4 item here, Brian. What do you got?
Well, on my list, and I don't know if it's the same as everybody's out there, but, all these late model trucks pretty much have one serpentine belt, just like your car or your pickup, and that belt is running everything. And, usually what I'm guilty of, instead of changing it, every other year or every third year, I just look at it when I think of it, and I kind of twist that sucker around with my hand, and I kind of look for the weather checks or the dry crackage, in the serpentine kind of grooved area of the belt. But, broke down on the side of the highway with no belt. It's service truck time. It's expensive. You're late on that pickup. You're late on that delivery. Service trucks are never convenient. They're seldom timely, but one thing's for sure, they're always going to cost more than you thought they were. And let's face it, at that point, you're spending money you didn't want to spend anyway. So that engine belt, whether you've got a single serpentine or maybe you got an older engine and it's got 4 or 5 belts, one on the alternator, one on the air conditioner, and a couple on the fan hub, but change those belts regularly. Even if you don't see the dry check, I would say, every 3 years, I would certainly want to do it. But be aware of that engine fan belt. Another thing I've learned to do over the year is even when you put a new one on, or maybe you pay somebody to put a new one on, tell them you want that old one, and put that old one in the storage box, in the toolbox, or in a trailer box, somewhere just kind of out of the way. Because if you shred one of those in the middle of the night, you can probably get a serviceman or you can muster up your own tools to change it. But sometimes getting to the dealership or the Napa dealer or something like that to get the right serpentine belt to get you home is a tall order. So I always save the old one if it's not ruined. Maybe it's just a little dried out, and it's a great idea to keep that on board for a get-me-home belt in the case of the unexpected.
Okay. Well, Brian, we just got about a minute and a half left here. Do you think you can give us number 5 in that time?
Well, no, I can't, because I only came up with 4. Oh. But I can tell you, hey, the summer weather, 100-degree plus, it's hard on man, and it's hard on machine. It really enhances all the likelihood for failure. So when you're got the truck home on the weekend, just go around it, on it, under the hood, under the truck, and kind of look for anything that may look like it's on the way out or an upcoming potential problem. And when in doubt, if you've got the budget for it, go ahead and take care of it, because there's nothing worse than being on the side of the road at 120 degrees and waiting on a tow truck or waiting on a service truck.
There you go. Well, a lot of interesting stuff in there, Brian, and definitely a lot of cleaning out. I think that's one of the big things with summer is just making sure all those components aren't clogged up like you talked about with the cabin air filter, with the charge air cooler. It can be a real mess.
It's all about airflow, guys.
Okay. Well, Brian, we sure appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk at you soon for another interesting topic. In the meanwhile, do you have any final words for us?
Nope. Don't forget it's truck show year. September, come here to GBETS. Other than that, you guys have a great day.
If you have questions, you can call 4-State Trucks at 1-888-875-7787. Again, that phone number is 1-877-875-7787. You can also learn more by going to the company's website, 4statetrucks.com. That's the number 4statetrucks.com. We'll be back in just a moment with more. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. When we use the word utility, we typically think of water, natural gas, or electricity. But Marty was listening a while back to a conversation, and something during that talk said that trucking fits the definition of essential utility. He said that idea really appeals to him and fits the trucking industry and the services it provides.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how you doing?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much. And I guess you are headed a little bit back east, aren't you?
Yeah, we had a little bit of a change in schedule, but we are going to be going to the Petro in Girard, Ohio, and that's I-80 and exit 226, and that'll be I'll be there May 9th and 10th out there, and they have 323 parking spots, so plenty of parking.
Absolutely. And now, have you been to that one before with the Spirit?
I don't remember. They're all starting to kind of run together. So a lot of times when I get there, I say, oh, yeah, I remember. Or I get there and say, this does not look familiar.
I can understand that. You've been to a lot of them there.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the topics that are kind of out there on truckers' minds right now. And one of them that you sent, you talked about the idea in a little note you sent earlier of trucking as an essential utility. And I've never heard it put quite that way, Marty. What are you referring to, and what's got people talking on that topic?
Well, actually, I heard that from our boss, Todd Spencer. And in one of his talks, he said that. And it's like, you know what? That really makes sense. You know, we have the utility companies, water and sewer and, electric, and they're regulated different, they're treated different than about any other industry out here. And it's like, hold it, it is an essential utility. Trucking, our whole country could not survive without trucking. I don't care how you look at it, why you look at it, we just couldn't survive without that. And maybe if more people would look at it as an essential utility, maybe we could get more favorable conditions from our federal government and the state governments, and just to have a total different outlook on maybe also rates and all, because this is not just a regular business. And, we can have, 20 restaurants, on one block, and does it matter whether one goes down or not? No, not really, to be honest about it. But trucking is such an integral part of what happens in this country. When he said that, it's like, gosh, that just makes sense. And we need to really push that. And maybe some of our elected officials and maybe some of the government folks could kind of wake up to the fact that it is.
It's interesting you say that. In a previous life, years and years ago, when I was covering local news, we dealt with the local water district. And, of course, that doesn't sound real exciting. But I remember there was this woman who was on the board of the water district, and she said something that's always stuck with me. And it kind of applies to trucking. She said, when people care about their water utility, when they turn on the faucet and nothing comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you watch those store shelves go empty, and all of a sudden, remember at the pandemic, people thought we were out of toilet paper, and the whole country was, throwing up their hands and screaming in a panic. And I remember seeing on television a woman who was behind the wheel of a rig, and she said, we're coming as fast as we can.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It really is an essential utility. That's interesting, Marty. I like that.
Yeah, like when I heard that from Todd, it's like, no wonder he is in the position he is, because I mean, I've never heard it put that way, and it's just spot on.
Well, and certainly truckers deserve the respect that those other utilities get.
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, again, people were treating truckers like heroes. And boy, the minute the crisis was over, here we are back to business as usual. And I don't think people look at, say, when the electricity goes out, they're always happy when the utility trucks show up to hook the lines back up. But it's not like they suddenly think ill of those guys once the crisis is over. So why don't truckers get treated the same way?
Exactly, because, as you said, it's kind of back to normal, but it really isn't. It almost feels like it's worse, where, now we are even more in the way of everybody else out on the highway than we were before the pandemic.
Boy. Well, hopefully we'll turn that around. There's always hope for that, and hopefully we can do it without another crisis. So,
yes.
Well, let's talk about another one on your list, and that is you've mentioned that some company drivers are feeling the pinch. There's a lot of pinch out there right now. What particular variety are the company drivers facing?
Yeah, I just, we talk a lot about the rates for the, owner-operators and that, and it's all true. The rates are, really bad compared to what has to be spent out here. And, I mean, because the cost of everything has gone up extremely. And company drivers, they're feeling that too. It's almost like they took a cut in pay. They definitely haven't been getting the raises that they were. So the last couple of years, not only are they feeling it through the inflation, but also they're not getting the raises that they should. And so many times here lately, especially probably the last couple months, I've been hearing that they're having to sit a lot more too. And so, a lot of people think that the company drivers get, all the gravy loads and all the miles and that, but so many times they don't, and they end up having to sit too. So, when we think about owner-operator, sometimes we say versus company driver, but we shouldn't. We're all in that same boat, and we all need to work together and try to get through this, and hopefully we can turn this around.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned that, Marty, because I've always thought we talk about how rates affect owner-operators and how they kind of live and die by those rates. But you forget that, if the big carrier doesn't have any loads, they're not going to be able to give those drivers any loads, and they're paid by the mile like everyone else in the business.
Absolutely.
So that is a pretty serious situation. Does it seem like it's worse than the last time we had a downturn, or is it different in some way than the last time we were kind of in this condition?
I think it's worse. I mean, just from talking to people, because of normally when the economy goes down, so do a lot of the expenses go down because things aren't as high. But this time, as we've all seen, prices have skyrocketed, and there's no relief in sight that I see yet. But hopefully, we'll be getting some good news here pretty soon.
Well, we sure can hope so. Well, Marty, we're running out of time here. I always hate to end the conversation because I enjoy it so much, but is there any? Now, you're taking a break a little bit here to go to the OOIDA board meeting after this, right?
Right, absolutely, and then we'll be taking a little bit of time off after that, but we'll still be keeping in touch, and hope everybody's doing well out there, and just want to remind people, be kind to one another, and give that driver next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, find that at landlinenow.com. You can also find the Spirit's complete schedule at the OOIDA website, OOIDA.com. Just go to the main menu at the upper left corner of the page, and under Membership, click on OOIDA on Tour. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.